Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. Yet again, I brought another fantastic group of independent comic book creators. And please hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let everybody know we're here. And listen, this week we don't have JD Rosario with us. He's had some family issues, a couple losses in his family, so he has my condolences. Him, his family, his wife. I mean, what more can we say? But Jay will be back in a couple weeks, stronger, smarter, and better than ever. Jay, we love you, brother. See you soon. Anyway, without further ado, we brought in our co-host or a co-host.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for having me back on, JD. My name is Jorge Medina, and I am the creator of Wonder Duck and Russ 5377. I'm also the co-host on the Catch the Craze. It's been that long. I haven't been on the show. Catch the Craze Tuesday nights live at 8 p.m. Check us out there.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know if you were gonna come on because the last time you were on, I thought you were shell shocked from that time.
I know. I'm back.
Okay, cool. And our co-host.
What's happening? What's up? Hey, you're wearing my shirt, man. What's up with that?
Yeah,
what's up, Mike? Hey, I'm Steve Michael Lanning, independent artist, has done work for Hazard Productions and Arrow Comics. Also co-host with Chad Perkins on Build a Comic Workshop on the Indy Comics Network. So check that out. I mean, no telling how we're going to mess that up, and let's see what we can get into tonight.
Nice. Well, listen, at least the two of you are men of distinction and taste. I like both your shirts.
Well, if you go get yours, we have a uniform here tonight. That's
if I would have known, I have mine. I should have worn mine as well. Too late now.
Next time you have George, just think of it as a given.
That's it. I guess what I'll be wearing. All right.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, James? Please introduce yourself.
My name is James Burton. I am the creator of Damage Incorporated. I work with Scatter Comics way out here in Sacramento. And my stuff can be found at www.angrybrainartworks.com.
Hey, guys. Hey, everyone. I'm Nick Caponi. I'm a colorist. I'm also the co-creator of the Sonoba publishing title Reign of Ages and the creator of my new upcoming title Purity.
Nice. Oh, so you know that guy Quinn.
Yeah, I've been working with him for like 7 years.
Oh, how could you do that? I'm gonna joke. Quinn's awesome. All right, so gentlemen, let's get down to it, right? So I got the show question. The show question. I'm sure everybody saw it. What are we as indie creators doing to improve our situation within the comics industry? So this is an individual question. What are we each doing? So James, let's start off with you. What are you doing to improve yourself in the industry?
What I'm doing right now is, it's not that I've been on a hiatus. I've been active making things behind the scenes and helping on anthologies with things like Orange Cone Productions. I've been in most of the Call of Cthulhu books where it's Cthulhu versus Oz, Cthulhu versus Wonderland, stuff like that. But I haven't gotten any whole issues out since the pandemic started. And for me, getting back involved, getting to see other creators, find out what's going on with them, help raise each other up, that's kind of what I'm spending my time doing at the moment. I've got several books ready to go, but getting back into getting awareness onto it, and as well as encouraging other creators, is kind of the phase that I'm in. Like, for example, I'm working with Sean Barber, who is an inker. He works out of Instinct Comics. He also runs the Comics Conspiracy boards for Facebook. He's a really good dude, and he and I are working on a book called The Treatment. He hasn't really done too many things where he's created everything all on his own so far, except for Belial, which he created with Chuck Pino. We're doing that horror book as well. I'm penciling it as well as working on my other books. So right now, that's the phase that I'm in.
All right, very cool. Look at this.
Yes. Oh no! See, I was wearing it, and then when I saw Rosario wasn't on tonight, I said, "Oh, forget it. I don't have to wear my hat." So that's what that was. No, but we did. I do miss you, man. You got to be on here when I'm on here sometimes.
I know, man. So
take care, though. Really.
Yes. Nick, So what are you doing to improve yourself? I guess with your standing within the community.
Honestly, I think the pandemic especially really, and opened my eyes to, put out my own stuff. And, with my book, it's been 14 years in the making. So I realized, the time is now. We're in what I call the second indie renaissance. We haven't had this big of a push on indie since the 90s, really. So I'm really just focusing on, working in indie. We're seeing, in my opinion, we're seeing more of a profit come out of indie versus, the big two. I'm a colorist, and I've to have some mainstream credentials. I've done Image, I've done Archie, I've done Dynamite, and they've all been great. But I'm noticing the shift now where it's more people are going towards the indie route. And even with new creators, even with established veterans in the industry, like, I'm really helping and supporting all of them to, and encouraging them to put out their own stuff. The time is now. And I think after being on a few Kickstarter projects myself, I'm really starting to see the you know the worth of it. And also,
Mhm.
it's, not only the worth financially, but, putting, there's something always special about putting out your own stuff. So I'm really that's what I'm kind of focusing on, and kind of like changing the narrative with the industry. I'm telling people, you don't always have to gun for the big two. DC and Marvel are great, don't
Mhm.
get me wrong, but there's so much more out there. And that's what I'm trying to, push. And that's what I'm trying to improve, not only with myself, but help others improve, their mindset of the industry, where, the opportunities are endless.
That's a good point, Nick. I don't know about you guys, but depending on your style, a few years ago, if you had a style that did not look like a house style for Marvel or DC, you may not even get attention or decent advice from an editor at a con or
Hmm.
from other professionals. You literally get told you either have to change everything you do and look like
Mhm.
these guys, or you may as well not even try to make comics.
Yeah. And I actually had a few colleagues of mine. I'm a graduate of the Cupid School, and one of my classmates, he landed a job with DC, like, very early on. And this is like right when New 52 was going on, kind
Yes.
of coming to an end. But when they were hiring talent, they actually, I don't know if I don't think they still do it, but apparently there was like a not like a master class, but there was like a course that every new artist had to take, where they were trained to draw the DC way, or like draw in like how DC wants them to draw. I don't think that's the case now, because as you can see, even with DC and Marvel, they're welcoming new styles. But yeah, for a
Mhm.
while, I agree, like at shows, at whenever you talk to editors a few years back, it's like if you didn't have that very modern, like, house style, if you didn't have that Marvel house style or that DC house style, they won't even look at you.
Do you know during those classes if were handing out how to draw the Marvel way at those DC classes?
Yeah. I would hope not.
Listen, John Basima, come on, you can't beat
Yeah,
that guy.
I mean, yeah,
If they were
Right.
smart, but
yeah. If
Yeah, I
they were
know. All right, hold on. Let me so we got Randy. Should be starting it now. He's the first one. What's up, Randy? How you doing? Dave says he misses us. He says I agree with the second indie
Crowdfunding
man.
age,
This
yeah.
is a crowdfunding age. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially too, someone in like particular, I kind of I kind of call him the king of Kickstarter, is Brian Polito with Lady Death.
Yes.
Like, it's really incredible. Like, his Kickstarter is like, the first day alone fund at least 100 grand. And like
Yeah.
every Lady Death book I've seen funded on Kickstarter on average is like $500,000 to $600,000. And it's
Hmm.
like, holy shit, man. Like,
Yeah.
so it really is the crowdfunding range, because especially with like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, it's really made huge, made opportunities for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, everybody except, you can kind of look, depends on how you look at it with comic shops, man. there's, that's kind of like replacing the direct market at the same way, because it's changing the distribution model. It's no longer Diamond, just everybody has to do what Diamond says, how they say it. The rest of the other stuff, when you're crowdfunding your own books, you're getting things in front of people, new eyes, old eyes, controlling your own marketing, doing the rest of that. That each comic creator has to be a master of all kinds of different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love how JD's not on the show. He's already derailed it. He's already done it. He's not even on the show.
He's not even on the show.
Somewhere he is maniacal.
That man knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
He knows. He knows.
He really does. I mean, listen, but to that point with the comic market, with the shops, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the bad part, I started a long time ago, right? So I first started self-publishing in '92. People heard me say that before. We had 14 different distributors. It was just a different era, right? But as an indie creator, we could sell 3,000 to 5,000 books right out the gate. I was 18 years old, and this is what we were selling right out the gate. Nobody knew it was, no advertising, no nothing. I was just kids, color cover, black and white interiors. We would just, we put out a few books, and this is what you could do. Whereas today, you can't do that in the direct market. I put out a book, I could advertise, do all that. I'll be lucky if I sell 3,000 copies, right?
Actually, if you sell 3,000 copies, you might be selling as well as some DC books.
Right, exactly.
That's true.
Which is kind of sad.
That's crazy.
But I have the buffer of Kickstarter or IGG or one of the other platforms, crowdfunder or whatever other platform you work with, to bolster those numbers. So I guess that in some way, some kind of weird like leveling,
Mm-hmm.
Well, my question though is, should we be calling it the crowdfunding age or just the internet age? Because even though you have Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and all these things, you still have to social market and everything else yourself too. So it's not just one thing that's added to this; it's the entire conglomerate of the internet that's kind of opened up the thing for indie creators. It's not just, crowdfunding is a great tool, but it's only a tool to a broader scope.
Yeah.
Well, you got to figure the internet's been around since what, 98, 97? I don't remember exactly what year, but crowdfunding's only been around for 10 years. So,
but I think to C's point, you were talking about more specifically the social media age, because that's been around. Because crowdfunding is a form of social media. You have to gather people around on the internet to kind of pledge or support your book when they don't know who the heck you are, or if if it's even going to come out.
But you still had people who did have webtoons or web comics even before webtoons existed that were putting stuff up that have profited now 20 years later. So I mean, it's just been an open market now in the internet age. Social media I think falls into the same category as crowdfunding, which I'm not discounting any of that. I'm just saying let's make sure we're broad in our scope as opposed to just focusing on one thing.
Tristan Vic says comic shops usually don't carry indies though.
Yeah, they carry the limited. They're friendly with mostly.
Yeah,
right.
The ones I've dealt with, I'm very fortunate to. They have welcomed indie. They do carry a lot of indie stuff. However, I have encountered some shops that you really only see like the big two, maybe IDW, maybe Dynamite, if even. But some
maybe
are very picky. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Maybe they'll have a Hellboy and they'll have a Walking Dead.
Absolutely.
I mean, the shops here in Sacramento are a little bit more indie friendly than that. I can name a couple off the top of my head. Like there's one he always buys anytime I have a new issue coming out. He buys a bunch of them from me and pushes them into the store. So it really just depends on like the skill and the spirit of the store. Like, is that store there where somebody's just trying to cash in on pop culture, or is that store there for somebody who's been around long enough to have seen that the 90s boom of the indies, to have actually gotten autographed Kevin Eastman stuff and all kinds of other indie books from back in the day and understands the spirit of it. There's shop owners who still have that characteristic. And like JD is saying right now, there's places they can get wholesale prices by reaching out to the Kickstarters. A lot of us generate, packages of that for retailers whenever we're doing Kickstarters, so it just depends on the spirit of it.
Yeah,
It's
I
just-
know.
Crowdfunding's made it a little bit more friendly, a lot of help for us to get things done. There's a lot of creative teams where they wouldn't be able to eat while making their books at all if it wasn't for Kickstarter.
This is true. Then we have what Cassius says, Webtoon is big as well.
Yeah.
He continues. So it's kind of like the digital age in a way. And Jay says crowdfunding age. Webtoons used to have the dominated period too.
Let me say something to that real quick, though. As far as that's concerned, I just saw a Kickstarter from a collection of Webtoons that $48,000 off the bat with 29 days left to go. So I would not discount that Webtoons is not out of their period yet. So don't think that.
They're not even anywhere near out of their period. But when you're competing against like 8 million people across every single country inside of the Webtoons to get the Webtoon space, that's a long game. You can't go in there and just put stuff up for 6 months. You got to go in there. Order of the Stick put stuff out for like a decade before they hit it.
Oh yeah, you got to. It's a work. It's a job.
Work.
I had to
It's a
actually.
grind.
I co-created a webtoon a few years back called Sinister Sisters. It's like it was me and my buddy. We made like D&D characters, and after the campaign ended, we made a comic with him. It was like a hobgoblin and a vampire. But the one thing I felt was very straining with like kind of like what you mentioned with like a webcomic is, especially with webtoons, if you're not consistently putting out content, you're not getting a pull. And that it's draining because like it's not like you could do, oh, let me just show them like a pencil page. No, like you have to have fully penciled, inked, and colored and lettered episodes ready each week. And some people, it may be like a lot easier for them, but definitely when you're like juggling other gigs, freelance gigs, and you're like trying to put out a webtoon, it's hard. So like keeping that consistency like stable throughout, it's definitely tough. It kind of what made me slowly veer away from webcomics a little bit.
Absolutely.
Which is also
for all of us.
Hey guys.
But
Sorry,
see,
I
there's
got
also the
something wrong.
issue.
Hello.
What's up,
With,
Grant? How you doing?
How are you? Nice to meet you.
There's also the issue, though, with it. While you look at some webtoons that are not as quality as you would think that something should be, is why that is so they can have consistency, and they're still pumping out, which kind of gives JD his argument for story over art. But I don't want to tell him that. So,
all right, hold on. Before we continue, Grant, please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Grant Lankard. I'm the writer, and I do some of the art duties on Beowulf. And I have a new comic book on Kickstarter, which is called Memoirs of the Morbid. It is. It just got funded earlier this morning.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah.
I will put the link in the chat as soon as I can find it.
And then Aaron says a lot of comic shops around Portland, Oregon carry Indy Comics. And again, Indy Comics kind of thrive out here. I kind of have 4 shops off the top of my head that carry Indy Comics. And Tristan Vick says crowdfunding acts more like distribution to indies, allowing us to reach many places we couldn't traditionally reach. True enough.
Very much.
And then Jay says, I agree with C and Russ, not discounting that. The accessibility, low barrier for entry, and catalog of a webtoons translates to dollars with collections. Daphne says, I remember one webtoons creator who creates the equivalent of 11 completed comic pages a week for upload. That is crazy.
Insane.
I mean, those have got to be really simple pages, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would hope. What I think also Daphne said they were working with a team. Like it wasn't just that one person.
Yeah, and if they are the simple ones, that's not too different than how fast manga artists have to create. I mean, their books are 100 and something pages a book, and they don't have anywhere near the detail level that other books have, and that's kind of a necessity to be able to crank those pages.
Yeah,
I mean that also asks the question like, which is more important, quality or quantity? Because I can't imagine that those are 11 like great pages.
Well, I think it depends. If you have amazing writing, yeah, the art can take a slightly backseat. But if the writing is, let's just say, not as up to par as that, then you better have something that'll knock people's eyes out of their sockets.
Well, you could take the approach that some manga artists take, where they'll have like, for one instance, when there's a scene and you have to set the place where the scene is, you do a real detailed panel of that scene and then start breaking it down. And then once you have everybody in that area where they're supposed to be, then you can have your individual characters in those panels, which is against the traditional way of actually doing comic art. But again, this is not necessarily a traditional way of doing comics, so you have to take that in consideration.
There was there was like
well, no, I'm just saying because you're
sorry.
Go ahead.
So, did you want me to introduce Angie?
Yes, please.
This is my wife, Angie. She is also a comic book creator. She's a fledgling comic book creator. She just got her first published work in Memoirs of the Morbid.
Awesome.
Which, as I mentioned before, is on Kickstarter.
Good stuff.
Congratulations, Angie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I think so we had a convention today. I think she's kind of half asleep. Not to say that I'm not, but
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, we've all been there. We've all done that. Daphne says, I just completed the inks for 11 pages in 3 weeks. So the thought of needing to do that every week is insane.
And that's the thing with webtoons, man. That you have to build a fan base on it. Like you have to have a certain number of subscribers. You have to have a certain number of like downloads or reads or whatever to make any money on it. So the only way to do that is the consistency. And if you don't have the consistency, you're done. You're done.
Plus, I feel certain sites like certain genres thrive more than others. Like I know I used to be on, I think it was called Tapastic, and I noticed with that it was more heavy on like slice of life genre. That really was the genre that had the most views. Whereas webtoons, you could, I guess, with the success with like Lore Olympus, it was huge in fantasy and like I guess like teen drama kind of genres were the ones that really popped off versus others.
Yeah, I was at a Barnes and Nobles and I saw a copy of that and I was like, well, it's a book of headshots.
See what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
headshots. It really is. Like I was just like, is there a single action scene in here? Does anybody swing a fist anywhere?
Yeah.
But I also think too, like I think the hard part about making a webcomic is that if you limit, like, and I'm not saying this is like every webcomic artist out there, but when, like what you said, like a lot of it's headshots, I guess, to meet time and like you're working so quickly, but like, can you really tell a story without establishing like the background and like with just headshots? Like if the majority of the episodes are just headshots with maybe like a singular background element that doesn't really explain much, I'm like, how can you really flesh out a story if it's all limited to that?
That's going to vary, though. That's going to vary really hard. You can do certain things inside of like Clip Studio to create a black and white web background that you can use as backgrounds. There's all kinds of different ways to like play with it. There's even webtoons creators that just use pixel art from video games to be able to make it. It's just about creating the environment the characters are going to be in, trying to make it consistent, and then pushing it out. That headshot thing, that's also a manga and anime thing. I mean, come on, in like back when we were talking about the last indie renaissance, Dragon Ball Z had hit the airwaves over here on Toonami, and there were episodes where literally we had to watch 3 months of filler art when the battle scene should have taken like a week, and we ended up watching it for like 9 months just because we kept watching headshots of Frieza and Goku arguing.
Yeah, and that's the one thing why I could never get into Dragon Ball is because for that exact reason where it literally took like 5 episodes for Goku to charge up his Kamehameha. Yeah. Like, I'm like, come on, do something. Like,
how long was he dead running down them stairs? I mean, up.
I'll tell you the truth. I don't read a lot of I don't read a lot of like current manga, with the exception of One Punch Man, because what's really interesting about One Punch Man, that difference from just regular manga titles out there, is that the artist who draws One Punch Man uses American comic book layouts. If you notice, he uses and it's incredible, and that's what I love about it. There's like that spark, but like before that, I really didn't see a lot of manga within the last 10 years that genuinely like caught my eye, because it was all, like you said, the same thing, headshots and just boring
it's
boring
getting
shit.
commonplace now, though. Like if you've cracked open My Hero Academia, that artist is killing it.
Yeah.
He's got his backgrounds. He's got a bunch of Western detail in it that a lot of the manga didn't support before. Demon Slayer, which is insanely huge, it knocked Studio Ghibli off the most gross movie in Japan. That manga series, like they've got a bunch more detail in it as well. Different style, yeah, but it's getting better and better as time goes on, and people are able to use different techniques to have the digital tools to be able to create more than just the talking heads. Because those Dragon Ball scenes we were just talking about, nobody was drawing digitally back then. That crap was all done by hand. So yeah, dropping.
You were reaching over to pet our cat for a second when you were reaching over to grab.
I'd like to say that I draw digitally and I still use my hand. Thank you very much.
But it doesn't stop me from being able to reuse other things from other scenes that I drew before, or all those different things. Nobody had Photoshop in '92.
You gotta use your hand to copy and paste, man. Come on now, you're still doing it by hand. No.
All right, we went a little far afield, so let's get back to the original question, and I'm going to ask it to Grant and Angie. So the original question is the show question. So what are you guys doing to improve your situation within the comics industry?
Networking. Talking to other creators, asking them what they've been doing to get their stuff out there. I mean, that's
Yeah, I mean, I think living and learning, adjusting your marketing plan to fit the situation. Yeah, I sort of feel like we've kind of hit kind of a plateau here. Like, I mean, we've gotten a couple of $3,000 to $4,000 Kickstarters, and I kind of thought that by now we would be like moving up a little bit more, but yeah, so we're kind of rethinking some of our strategies.
Yeah.
Which I mean, you talk to comic book creators who use the same strategy every time, and when they're not improving, they act like it's some big mystery. But we're trying. I guess to me, it is kind of hard because we do work in a field where there are no guarantees or there is no easy path. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, but Angie's point about being able to network with other creators, I mean, podcasts alone, listening to guys like Comics Lunch and being able to hear about what's going on for other creators is a tool that you had to go to the cons and basically hang around until people were willing to talk to you before. You had to have the money to be able to go to those cons. And when I was a kid, there's no way in hell I could have done that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I interrupted you, Angie. I'm sorry. I think I interrupted James too. I'm sorry. Did you have more you needed to say? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, man, I'm done. I'm just saying Angie's point is a very good one, that we have stuff just like this podcast. There's all kinds of tools now where we get to network and learn from each other, so that some people's ideas may turn out to be something you haven't tried yet, or you may learn that maybe there's a different writing strategy that you want to do, or all those things come about by listening to other creators' experiences and comparing them from other industries.
I think you also have to be careful about what advice you take, though, also, because sometimes, like if you have a successful Kickstarter, it can be hard to go back and figure out, like, okay, this is why it was successful. So, I mean, I've gotten a lot of advice, some of it good, some of it bad. I'm not going to lie to you. Kickstarter is still kind of a mystery to me. I mean, it does sort of feel like we're just throwing stuff at the wall sometimes and seeing what sticks.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Look, I mean, in the end, I mean, the only thing you can do as a creator is do the best work you can do, right? Do the best. That's it. Focus on that. Focus on quality, right? And then other things will start to settle in once you got that one under control. And that's the hardest one. That's the hardest one, because developing that level of taste where things look right. Because look, I've been at this forever. Do I miss things? Of course. But that's why you have other people working with you.
Yep.
That's why you do need a team. You need to surround yourself with people who can help you nitpick those little things and develop that. And also develop a team that's willing to tell you when you're wrong, and you have to listen. You know, because that's the hardest thing. I've been told I've been wrong, and I'd be like, no, I'm right. And then 2 months later, I'm like, shit, I was wrong. Right? It happens. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the most difficult thing is like getting over our own egos. Because listen, I don't know a single comic book creator. I've never met one that does not have an ego the size of the moon. Okay? We don't espouse it, like we don't just come off like, yeah, I'm the greatest thing. No, but in your head, I know in your head, your ego is ginormous. But you need to do that to put yourself out on Front Street the way we do.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's it. Because if you're gonna put yourself out in a public forum the way we do, right, where we are judged by exactly what we do, you have to have a ginormous ego on some level, somewhere. You know, you might keep it hidden in your pocket, and that's fine. But you know, it's there. It's there. I know it's there. You know,
You just got to know how to control it or when to let it off its leash. That's
right. Correct. So yes, I would always just advise the same thing, man. Just focus on the quality of work. Obviously, promote as much as you can. You know, and like James said, you gotta, you know, just keep working with other creators and just, you know, trying to get out there, talk to the community. It's why I started this show. You know, I started this show during COVID, and it was just like, all right, let's get down, let's talk, let's see what's going on with everybody. It's how I met C. I already knew George.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for locally from local conventions and other crazy heads that we know. Right.
I'll tell you what, I miss. That is the thing I miss the most about going to cons. That's usually when all the scattered creators get together and go over the things that are working and whatnot, and you get to meet other creators. You get to meet people that you aspire to. All the rest of that. And in all honesty, I haven't been to a con since the pandemic started. And I'm seeing some other buddies going, and they're feeling like they're safe enough to go to. And I that's the part I miss about it the most. And right now I'm trying to figure out next year if I'm going back and how I'm going to make it happen.
Larry from Nairobi Comics says, I don't have an eagle. Larry, get an eagle. You need an eagle.
We can't all be peacemakers, but okay.
I will tell you guys a story. So I've been writing my whole life, but I've never written a comic book. And Grant read some of the things, and he's like, well, this one you could turn into a comic, like for Memoirs of the Morbid. And I definitely kind of like bristled by some of his advice at first, just because like, oh, I think this story is, our lights just flickered. But I mean, he was right in the end. But so it is a tricky thing. Like, I want to write the story that I want to read, but like also figuring out like getting advice from him, because obviously he's been doing this longer.
Yeah, there's a bunch of mechanical stuff you need to learn when you're a writer about how the pages work, and a bunch of other things that you really have to talk to an artist to actually truly understand it. And without it, there could be a lot of problems. I've worked in situations where that was an issue.
Yeah, I know for myself, I've had similar things, right? Like I've worked with C on a story, and I'm sure Steve probably cursed my soul to hell on a few occasions.
I don't have hair anymore, right? So.
Exactly. So there you go. So I tend to write a full story with no page or panel breakdowns. So I will allow the artist to make those decisions.
Wow.
Is that
kind of Marvel method?
Marvel method?
Big time Marvel method.
Well,
except he actually writes. That's the thing.
I put in all the dialogue. I'll put in facial expressions. I'll put in everything like that.
Yeah.
But I will allow the artist to do, the page turn, right? Let them decide if they want to throw in a splash page, so on and so forth.
So here's my question. How do you know? I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
How do you know if you're writing too much story for a one issue when you do it like that?
Oh,
artists will tell you.
Yeah, that's a good question, because here's the other thing. This is one of the reasons why I stopped writing professionally, right? Is because yeah, then at that point you do have to, because when I wrote professionally during the 90s, I had to break it down page by page for my editors. I had to. I had no choice. But doing an independent comic, the way obviously we all do, is I write straight to the end, and it is as long or as short as it needs to be. If I end up with a 27-page comic, I end up with a 27-page comic. If I end up with a 130 or 40-page comic, that's what I end up with.
Okay,
And
that makes sense.
you know,
Can I add that as the artist?
Yeah, go ahead.
Artist on the other end of that is the thing about that is too the way he writes is he also has slow parts and he has rising parts. So that's really easy to break up as far as books are concerned. So it's not as difficult as you might think it is. It could be, you know, aggravating to get it right. But sometimes, yes, he writes a lot of story, but you have to be able as the artist to come in, and this is where we're now equal in the creative field, because I have to be able to come in and still convey what he wants to convey, even though maybe having to edit some things that he really would like to put in there. Although he stuffed it in there.
Right, but you guys have worked that flow out together. There's a trust there. Well, the couple of writers that I worked with on the newest Damaging book, one of them was a newbie where he and I sat down and learned a bunch of things together where it was like a teaching experience. And then on the other one, he's a creative writer and in charge of all these different things at the high school. He and I both been there to teach kids and whatnot. And so his policy on his books is, here's the story, have fun with it, and let me know when you're done. And there was a trust there because he's worked with me before. He's a part of Scattered. So whenever you have that kind of relationship, it's always a lot easier. But like JD said, man, ego doesn't breed trust, and being able to direct it, like C said, that's a huge part of it. And checking your ego so that you can work together with somebody is a big part of it. I'm working on a project with my sister Kira, and she's got a crazy imagination, but she writes in a very different way than I do. Like I do outlines, and I know where the beats are going to be, and I know where the page stops. And I like you said, write ups and downs accordingly. Man, she's an extreme of consciousness style writer, and it's it takes a lot of trust to be able to merge those two together.
So I'm the exact opposite way. Like I've done stories that somebody else drew. I've done stories that I draw, and then I've also drawn stories that other people have written. So I feel like if it's possible, I feel like everybody should do that, just because you get to see the parts of the process that you like and the parts of the process that you don't like. And so I always worry that artists are going to get mad at me when I say this. When I'm writing a story for somebody else to draw, I still do the layouts. And I say, see, Michael Lanning was
no kidding. Whatever you're gonna say, I was gonna leave. It didn't matter. No, that's
so I always ask the artist, look, I'm gonna draw out the layouts whether you want to look at them or not. If you don't want to look at them, that's fine. I won't send them to you. I'll just send you the written out script. But I need to draw out the layouts, because I can't visualize how they're going to fit on a page. I mean, I can't wrap my head around why is it that some pages have 9 panels and they don't look crowded, but other pages have 3 panels and they do look crowded.
I think it's because some writers, and this is where I agree that sometimes getting maybe for me at least, if there's a certain page that I'm like, quote unquote concerned about, I might ask for like, oh, what did you have in mind in regards to the layout? Because there are some people I've worked with, some writers I've worked with, where I think the common thing I see is where they'll jam in like 5 different actions in one panel. So like you have one character throwing this, one character running at a villain, one character like grabbing a car, one like all in one panel. And you would think that if it's like a 9-panel page and that's panel 2, how are you going to fit all of that in what I would assume would be a fairly small panel if you're trying to fit 9 panels into a page? So like I do like that idea where there might be a layout in mind, especially for something like that, where if I'm going in drawing it, I might be like, like sometimes like I like doing layouts, but like certain panels, like with the example I just mentioned, it's like kind of like throws you off guard for a few rounds of trying to come up with a layout where you're like, oh, I just missed this action. Or sometimes you might, what I've done on some projects, and even when I learned in school, that sometimes it's sad to say it like this, but you have to kind of pick and choose. If you were giving a panel like that or a sequence like that, you have to kind of rank each action of a certain level of importance. Like if I had to get rid of one of those actions just to make room for the letters and to make room just for the story and the panel, which one can I get rid of? So it gets a little complicated. So like the fact that like if like you had a layout in mind would just be like super helpful. That
and I was going to say, like usually when I give artists that speech, like when I tell them, you don't have to look at the layouts that I'm supplying. I don't think ever once anybody has said no, I don't want to look at the layouts. So so it must not be that offensive.
Yeah.
No, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I know DC does this. They actually hire layout artists. Like they will literally hire someone to do layouts for other people. And especially, I don't want to sound like a dick when I say this, but especially when for a while in like the early like mid New 52 era, when they started going more stylized, they would actually pick up a lot of artists off of like Tumblr and Twitter, and usually those artists were very they were more specialized in illustration and pinups and one shots, but they never told a story. And I think you want to use that artist for their talent, but if they can't tell a story, they'll just be like, oh well, let's just hire this person to draw the layouts for them, and then they just apply that to their art.
So I mean, I guess my question would be, how would you credit that? I mean, would you do a separate credit for layouts and a separate credit?
Well, usually it's breakdowns. Sometimes you have, like we talked about John Basim a little bit earlier, right? So if you see some of his pencils and then you see somebody like Rudy Nebris inking them on Conan, right? You're like, Rudy was an embellisher, right? So John would come in and give him a basic breakdown, and Rudy would come in and just, do the world to that thing. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Rudy Nebris, but his inks are incredible. Like I say, it's a completely different title. It was not an inker; he was an embellisher. So
I mean, that's old school too.
That's really old school. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, well, some of them though they'd actually put in the comic book bubbles, and the artist would have to draw around that. So
and some of those artists just don't get credit for it. You know what I mean? They just don't. They ghost artists, and nobody knows who they were, and they just never got credit for it.
No, true. Well, I mean, back in the day, they listed them as embellishers, right? I mean, that was like the title: was embellisher. You had inker, you had embellisher, you're a breakdown artist.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So listen, I think we kind of went over this question. I mean, BC and George, with the host, so we can just let go. George, you got a question to ask?
Yes, I do. I was on Monday or Friday. I was watching Daphne and Nita. They were on the show. And,
Jesus!
Big.
You watch this show?
You watch that shit? No, and they were talking about Daphne's actually going to be going to a convention. She's going to be doing a convention. JD, you're not going. She's going solo, right? She's flying solo.
Man, like I got to watch the animals. Like what the hell? So I literally got to watch the cat and three birds. Like what the F?
So my question is, and James, you said you haven't done a convention in a while, so just think back when you used to do them, if you did them.
Of course.
When at shows, okay, what is your sales approach? Is it hard sell? Is it soft sell? Is it giveaways? Is it a nod and a smile? It's like, hey, come here, I got something for you. Like, what is your sales approach?
The very first time I went to a convention, I was told that if I went into a convention as an unknown and I sold 5 books, I was going to be a success. And I got insanely nervous, but I prepped the hell out of my table. I made it look as professional as I could and as clear as I could. And I read other artists' takes. I talked to a lot of different people who had been tabling, And what I learned, the most valuable thing I learned is, unless you are going to just be trying to do commissions and working on commissions at the convention, always look up, greet everybody that you talk to, answer questions, and ask questions. And that's what I did. I ended up selling my first book to a pirate for pirate gold. It's still in. He literally paid with gold coins. It was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had. I sold 40 books that day, and right now I think my record in one go is about 200 books in a space of like 3 hours on a Saturday.
Nice.
And it was an amazing day.
Wow.
And it really comes down to interact with the people that are coming by. You're not sitting there like a clerk at McDonald's who doesn't want to be there. You're not, the energy you're putting out is what you're going to get back.
Right.
And you can't bark at conventions. If you bark to other people, you can get thrown out. You have to sign paperwork about that. So I tend not to do hard sell. I tend to just get attention, talk about the book, offer them to take a look at the examples on the table. And if my art can't sell the book once I get them to open it, then I failed. And I just move on.
Sorry.
Is to just get them to look at that example and interact with them enough to get them interested.
So George, I watched that episode of Daphne and Nita's show too, and the one thing that they were saying is like they hate walking through Artist Alley because they hate like the really assertive salesman. And I was sitting there thinking, like, I was just like cringing as she was saying this. Because like I'm that guy who will like, if you're coming up to my table, you're gonna leave with a comic. And God, I don't even know. I mean, I could talk for hours about this. So Angi is a good natural salesman. I am not a good natural salesman, so I had to force. I literally sat down. Everything about salesmanship makes me feel uncomfortable. Right. And I said to myself, okay, you're going to feel uncomfortable and you're going to get over it. Right. You have to start. If you want to be a comic book writer and artist, salesmanship is part of the job. You're going to have to learn it. And God, I'm trying to think what to narrow down my advice to. I mean, like James said, greet everybody. Wave since comic book conventions are a noisy place.
Hey, nice shirt, great costume. How you doing today? What's your day at the con going like? Always,
Look for something on them that you can tie back to the comic book, even if it's something, even if it's stretching a little bit. And for me, the most important thing is put the comic book in their hands.
Right. Yep. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And once it's in their hands, the art is the thing that they get to see, and the art will they'll either connect with the style or they won't. And if they don't, then they're not your customer anyway.
Right. Another great piece of advice: give them something super cheap for free. Like a sticker costs 3 cents. For 3 cents to get a really great icebreaker, I will gladly pay 3 cents to get a great icebreaker, which is, hey, would you like a free sticker?
Mm-hmm. Grant, have you changed your approach on the hard sell since? Like, have you kind of like toned it down, or are you still kind of using it? Is it working for you? Like, how's that going?
I mean, we sold about 3 times as many comic books as the guy sitting next to us. So,
so it does work.
It works.
Nick, what are your thoughts? What do you do at shows to?
So I kind of do. It's kind of, I guess, like, I'm not a hard sell, but maybe like in the middle, because I'm still, so since, like I said, I have a background in coloring, I'm still looking for color work, and I'm also now pushing what's going to be 2 creator-owned books. I kind of have to do a mix of things. So like, whether if it's talking to my table neighbor, and then I'm like, oh, hey, if you need a colorist, let me know. And then, or someone approaches me and we talk about stuff, and you'll get the one of them was like, oh yeah, I'm a creator, I make my own book. And I'm like, oh, hey, if you ever need colors, I keep my portfolio on me at all times, my iPad with all my digital stuff. But then when it comes to like my books, I already know going in that my books are a certain niche, and what Grant made a good point where maybe you have to maybe find an aspect where I don't want to say you have to relate to the person coming to your table, but like, for example, my book Reign of Ages is very like Elf Quest meets Lady Death meets it's like very high fantasy. So like if I see someone with like a Dungeons and Dragons shirt, I'll be like, "Oh, I like your shirt." Like, and then if they're at my table, they're like, "Oh, thank you, thank you." I'm like, "Yeah, if you like Dungeons and Dragons, you might like Reign of Ages, and feel free to take a look at that." And then in the mix of that, I'm also like promoting my new book where it's like I'm like this is more of a heaven and hell book if you're interested in that as well. And that's how I kind of sparked the conversation. I'm definitely not the one like calling someone like across the aisle, be like, "Hey, come over here, check out my book." I tried that very early on when I started doing shows, and people would just kind of look at me and just nod their head and walk away. Like it's so I'm like, all right, maybe I go with like a softer approach. But the one thing I always do, especially like I'll take like little breaks in a sense of maybe I'll spend 10 minutes working on a commission, and then I'll take 10 minutes standing up. What even if no one's coming to my table, I'm standing up because I'm like engaged. So like if I see someone, I look at them, I say hello, how are you? I usually start off with saying like, "Oh, how's the show treating you?" And sometimes I keep forgetting that the show only started for like 10 minutes and they're like, "Oh, I just got here." But I try and keep the conversation rolling, and I kind of throw, if you like Dungeons and Dragons, feel free to take a look at my book Reign of Ages. I also have a new book coming out. I usually my setup right now is mostly Reign of Ages stuff since I don't like my book isn't out yet. But I do also have two banners. Usually I have a coloring banner, like my colorist banner, and I also have a Reign of Ages banner. So I kind of make the display kind of split. And it's because it wasn't until last year, or no, like almost 2 years, I would say, where people didn't just look at me as a colorist, because like for a while at shows I was just tabling as a colorist. So now that I'm an indie creator, it's still like a little bit of a split thing, but usually regardless of what I'm selling, whether if it's my book or just my services, I still try and be as engaging as possible. I'm never like aggressive about it. I'm always just like, "Oh, hey, like feel free to take a look." I'm also offering a lot of these originals for sale. Feel free to take a look at this portfolio here. So it's like I said, it's a little mix of things. I also like kind of read the room a little bit, because a lot of the show, like some of these shows now are more like anime shows or more pop culture shows and not comic shows. So I kind of play my audience a little bit and see like, all right, how do I approach the crowd that's coming to this show versus more of like a fan expo show where it's more of like a pop culture show where there's a lot of, you have your anime fans, you have your comic fans, but you might not have the comic fans going in looking for originals. You might have the one who just loves the MCU, whereas some other shows are very heavily catered to original art, indie comics. And so I also, that factors in on how I approach myself and sell myself at cons. So yeah, like it really depends, but I think for my case it's like different since I'm kind of pitching, like promoting, networking for like three different things, and like one's like vastly different where it's like I color comics, but now I draw comics. So like you could kind of, I could sell myself in two separate ways. So
all right, cool. Now I just want to show this to everybody.
Jesus.
This is how we know
Are
Jay
you
is
sure
cheap.
about that?
This is how I know Jay is
sure
cheap. Jay is cheap. That's all I'm saying.
Jay is cheap.
So Angie, how do you go about selling at shows?
I mean, so Grant said that I'm like a natural salesperson. My dad's a salesman, so I just kind of like observed him growing up, and I'm generally just very friendly with people. So I hate to use this analogy because I'm nowhere close, but like I just, like Grant said, look for little details, and like every comic book that we have has a cat in it. So if I see somebody that has anything with a cat, I'm just like, honing in on that, like, because I know the guy said, like, don't give anything for free, but listen, if you give people a free cat sticker and they like cats, they will stand there and talk, you will, it'll be an easy engagement.
Yeah, I made the mistake of doing a My Little Pony sketch for a little girl just because she was there. She stayed at my table for an hour, and nobody was able to even come up to the table because she had all of her toys. I didn't know she had a bag of toys. Next thing I knew, there's toys all over my table and all kinds of stuff. So beware. She might have had cats with her.
Well, here, this one brings up Jay's next comment. Look at this. You needed one of these guys. Oh, or bring a sweeper who will keep you from dragging on conversations that will cost you the next sale.
Yeah, we learned that pretty early on. Like, I would say engagement with a customer should probably, this is a guess, be about 7 minutes, maybe 5.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell if somebody's going to buy something pretty quickly, or they just want to stand there and talk to you. I would say sometimes it's easier for me to sell to women than like for Grant, just because of life. It's just an easier exchange, I guess.
That's another good piece of advice. If you can bring a woman along, it just like,
I would say it expands the audience.
I mean, it's for multiple reasons. I mean, a lot of times single women are afraid to approach a booth that's just men because they're like, oh, these guys are going to hit on us. Or men are more likely to visit a booth with a woman in it just because they like talking to women, talking to dudes.
This is true.
And I am not offended by that, P.S. Like,
I travel with... Yeah. I've done a lot of shows with Daphne, and yes, I agree. So,
go ahead, sorry.
Oh yeah. So, Mr. Lanning, please answer the question. How do you go?
I don't know. I've never worked a con, so I have no idea.
I'm gonna break you out of that one. That's not a lot.
Maybe we'll see. But
you out of the house.
We'll see. Well, down here you don't have that many cons, so you can't really.
Well,
if I'm going to do a con, I have to travel.
Yeah, well, you got to travel. That's what you got to do. All right. Well, I'll answer the question real quick, George. I don't consider I suck. I don't like selling. I really don't. I don't like selling. But I did find something that breaks the ice for me. And what I'll do is I used to print up these small digest-sized books. It was a 24-page comic, and it was the entire first issue of the Oswald Chronicles. And I would tell everybody it was black and white interiors, cover to cover. And it ran me like 50 cents to produce this, right? And I would go to everyone. I would be like, listen, book is $1, right? It says, and if you don't like the book, you bring it back. I will give you back your $1. Money back guaranteed, no problem. No problem. As long as you give it back to me in the condition I gave it to you. I've only ever had, and it was like an immediate sale. People would leave, read it, come back, buy more books because they like the story, right? I've only ever had one person come back and ask for their $1 back, and I was a kid, and just because he wanted to have the extra $1 to buy one of the more expensive books on the table. I ended up selling the expensive book and giving him that one anyway. So, that regard, it's worked out very well for me. And unlike Jay, I actually like giving away trading cards. So, like I said, Jay's cheap. I don't know what's wrong with
Well, the other thing that you can, the other thing that's nice about freebies is what we'll do is we put something different on each card, and we'll watch the customer see which card they pick up, and I'll tailor my pitch to which card they picked up.
Right.
Oh, that's a good one.
So if they pick up a card that has like a comedic character, I'll emphasize the fact that the comic book is funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Daphne's mentions this because I do actually like walking around the show.
Yeah.
I think
that would be my problem.
I would be gone for a couple hours. She'd be calling me on my phone. Get back to the table. You got to sign books. I'm like, damn.
But you can't sit at your table all day long and not meet any of the other creators. I got to talk to James O'Barr, Mel Ruby, there's different people to go and talk to, and you end up meeting people that can be a really valuable contact, or just somebody who helps your own creativity in a different way. That's part of the con experience as well, and something not to be taken entirely too lightly. I've stayed at my table for like 9 hours in a row and not moved, and then just absolutely regretted it later because I missed my chance to go meet Kevin Eastman once, just because I wouldn't leave my table because I was obsessed with hitting like a specific goal.
Right.
You really got to show up like the way people show up in Vegas. I'm here to have the experience. I'm here to grow as a person in different ways. And if I happen to walk out of here with money in my pocket, fantastic. And if I don't, well, it is what it is. Because if you sit there at the table and just wind yourself up, that energy is gonna like go out all over the place, and then nobody's gonna come over there and talk to the guy that's going like this all day long.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
Well, real quick, the one time I remember the one time that happened, I was talking to Mike Mignola, and I get the call. I'm like, I'm sorry, Mike, I gotta go.
I wouldn't leave Mike's table either.
I'm like, love your stuff. I was like,
Mike will talk to you. That's just
here's my $20. I gotta go.
yeah.
So anyways, James, I think that's really good advice, because I think sometimes I tend to like just be so single-minded at these conventions. Like, we have to sell books. We have to sell books. We have to sell books. That like they're very anxious. Like, these conventions are very anxious times for me. And I'm trying to view conventions more as like being an adventure rather than just a business proposition.
They certainly have been that, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean,
well, you know what, Grant? I think to part of that too is like if you're going to look at it as a job, even at your job, your 9 to 5, you still get an hour lunch, you still get 15-minute breaks. So you should still take those breaks. You should still take those, things in between, so that you're not overwhelmed by the 8 hours, because that is an 8-hour day, dude. That's on your feet talking all day. That's
I'll tell you, like,
I'm not saying anything, because every last one of you are now going to be on Daphne's shit list. I'm just going to let y'all know that, because you're just going to give him more excuses to get away from the table. Well, George said, just remember that.
Man, I don't even think I'd answer my phone to my wife if I was at Mike Mignola's table and she called. I'd be like, deep. Anyway,
I'm telling you.
So
yeah, I'll tell you though, sometimes it even shows like sometimes like I'm like that too, where I'm just like bound to my table. Like sometimes I'll just like live off of like coffee and that's it all day, and so like I'm already anxious from the caffeine, but like, oh, I forgot to eat today, and then like, oh, should I get up away from my table? Oh, but I could miss a sale, and like, but you have to like realize, like what you said, it's like an 8-hour day. You should get a break. Does that mean you should like roam from your table for like an hour and a half, 2 hours? No, but like 15 minutes.
Nice, Nick. Nice to pull it back in that way, man.
Yeah, like
I completely agree with you, Nick. Except if it's Mike Mignola that you get to talk.
If it's Mike Mignola, yeah, we make the exception. But,
I promise you this: Mike Mignola does the same thing, because I've been to his table when he wasn't there before.
Yep. And the more books you sell, the less time you end up at the table.
Yeah. Oh, I've known big names who just show up for like a few hours and then like call it a day. They're like their lines like wrapped around their table and like down the aisle, and then like they're only there for like 2 hours of the show, and then they go off and grab a drink somewhere and just call it a day.
Well, they're at those cons for very different reasons, and I think we are at the level that all of us are at. We're building our fan bases. We're interacting with our fans. That's one of the reasons why crowdfunding is more than just the internet. It's about the fact that we're talking to the people who are involved and buying in what we're creating. It's more than it in a way. Each crowdfunding session is basically like a miniature convention combined with a signing event at a store, combined with a social media presence, all wrapped up in it together. And that's one of the things that make it so special, is that nowadays, like, for example, when I was a kid and all I thought about was comic books, and I wanted to get a chance to go do those things. If I'd have been able to get there and meet one of my heroes and stay there all day at the table, I would have been there. I mean, that could have been a journey where I had to take 3 buses and whatever. Now it's not like that. Now it's like we're literally there interacting with the people buying them right then and there, and sending them messages and answering questions and showing them examples of how we do it. That didn't exist before, and it's a huge opportunity to help grow not only as a creator, but grow as an artist and grow as a fan all at the same time.
Yeah. Absolutely. So George, real quick, answer your own question. How do you sell a show?
For a while, it was. I mean, unlike JD Rosario, I would give stuff. I would give like cards away. I would give like just 5x7 cards, just icebreakers. If I'm handing a card out, more likely people are going to reach out for that card, and then now it's almost like fishing. Now I got them, I'm hooking them to kind of just talk to them and say, hey, what's going on? So so for a while, that's what we did. I mean, these cards, you're going to give them away anyway. I mean, these are 5x7, you can print it like 250 for like, I don't know how much, and use it as just bait almost, you know what I mean? To get people to come to the table just so that, because the moment you can have a conversation, and to a lot of your points, the moment you act like a human being to them, they automatically just say, hey, this guy's kind of cool. Let me see what you got. And they just kind of read through the book. And just because they like you sometimes, they'll throw some money your way. Or sometimes they really do like the book and be like, holy cow, this is great. But
so how does Jay sell a book at a show? Nobody I haven't met anyone who likes that guy.
People are trying to get away.
Maybe he doesn't talk.
That's what it is. Oh. They're trying to get away, so they just give him some money so they can go.
Yeah, man. So that's it. That's usually the way I do it.
All right, cool. So, hold on. Let's.
I have a question for you guys. Since I guess whose is this? Sorry if I missed the beginning.
This is mine.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, this is James's. It came up because my computer's lagging. I don't know what the hell's going on. But James, please walk us through Damaging.
Alrighty. I am putting out a new volume of Damage Incorporated. This is going to be issue 1 in that volume 2. Damage Inc. is a story about friends who have formed a club to hunt down supernatural creatures and superpowered metahumans for bounties. In their world, there are bounties to stop those things from hurting people. But they kind of suck at it. Every time they go out, they end up with plan B and C, and it always ends in sarcasm, mom jokes, and explosions.
Nice.
In this particular one, it's got 2 different stories. It's a 24-page book. The first story is written by Keith Carmona, a fellow scattered creator, where Keith is in charge of a crossover event between all of our books, where we've got a Damage story where we have to hunt down interdimensional spiders and end up in this creepy temple. And the second story is the premiere issue for Jeff Aragon. He's a good friend of mine, longtime comic book fan like me, and it's his first go at being a writer. And he takes us into a crazy like undead temple where we end up having to deal with the world's most annoying undead creature, a mummy by the name of Tashu.
Cool. And this is going to be a 2-part series?
It's a 2-part story inside of the book. We created both of those stories to be short stories, but they were finished inside of the book. One of them was a part of a project that was supposed to be for Dren Productions, but there were some issues inside of the guy in charge of that's life, and it didn't get to go out. So we took the story and have kind of put it together to get a whole issue taken care of. It's in black and white with a lot of creepy gray tones. I try to duplicate as many lighting effects as I can as I'm creating. And it's basically a big fun-filled Monster of the Week style story romp.
Oh, cool. Very nice. Now, when do you expect to launch, if you don't mind mentioning?
We're launching tomorrow. It begins at 7:30 p.m. And we are going for a 17-day run, and it's going to be ending on the 27th of July.
Okay, cool. Any reason why it's such a short period?
Yeah, the Dead Zone sucks.
Yes, I agree. Okay. All right.
There's two reasons. I wanted to do a campaign where I got it done and got things moving, kind of reawakened everything that I'm trying to get done with it. I've actually got 2 other books that are ready to go on Kickstarter, 2 other projects, and those books are completely finished. I've also got like 6 other scripts written with various levels of development. So I wanted to get back into the game, get this going, and just get through it. I just don't see the point in doing it for a month and a half when you have a 10-day dead zone in the middle. I just don't get it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Trust me, I've been there, done that. Very nice. Cool.
It looks really cool.
Angie,
Oh,
you
that's
said you had a
awesome.
question, right? What was your question?
Yeah.
So when all of you were starting out, what was oh my god, I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. What was an epiphany you had? Like you thought you knew stuff, and then you kind of got like a hard lesson.
Be careful who you partner with, and always have a contract.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I second that.
I third that. I third that.
So for me, when I first started working on Beowulf, I thought that it was going to be really easy to get a publisher to look at my comic and say, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll publish your comic book for you, and yeah, we'll do all the marketing. You don't have to do anything on social media." And
Okay.
then talking around to I feel like if I had known how much marketing was involved in being an independent comic book publisher, I probably never would have started. But so maybe it's a good thing that I didn't know. So yeah, I already had half a comic book done before. I was going around asking people, and they were all like, "Yeah, you're probably going to have to self-publish for at least a couple years before you'll be able to find a publisher to actually publish your comics."
JD, I don't know if you were pulling something up, but while you do that, I guess I'll answer the question. My epiphany was at my first convention. I realized I didn't need all the books I brought with me. Like I brought like 500 books. I'm like, I'm about to sell all of these books. And I realized this is my first convention. Nobody knows who the hell I am. I am not selling all these books. So yeah, I overprinted.
I believe you
the
could do
first
it though,
one.
George. I believe
Thanks.
you.
Yes, thanks. I appreciate it. See, I appreciate
We believe in you.
it.
My epiphany. Wow, have I ever even had one? I mean, other than I've made
No
plenty
ego,
of
no
mistakes.
ego.
I've made plenty of mistakes, fallen on my face plenty of times, but have I ever learned from it? I don't know. Wow, I'm gonna have to get back to that. I'm gonna have to really get back to that. I don't know. Like, I agree with everyone. Have a contract, that sort of thing. Because of course, me and C, we have like an ironclad one that we sign together. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. I think the one thing that I really learned throughout this entire process is try to be good to everyone you're working with, and try to understand what's going on with them. I think that's the one thing that I've learned, because early on when I first started, I was 18, 19 years old, out of New York City, angry. I can't even tell you how angry I was, just for no reason other than I was 18. And it took a long time to learn to just be good to people, So yeah, so that's it. That's my epiphany. Be good to everyone as much as you can, Anyway.
For me at least, my epiphany, just to add on to that too, like to be good to people. What I always try to do is, like I said, always help everyone around me. Like I think that's what keeps me grounded. I know we talked about egos earlier on the show, but like I think my epiphany was, do good, kind of get good. And that's what I've been doing. Like not only that, it's just make sure your team's in check, make sure you're accommodating them as much as you accommodate yourself. You don't want to overwork them. You don't want to. I mean, this is like from even my experience as a colorist. Like, it's not always the best news to get when you're offered a book to color, but you have to color it in like a little bit over a week. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure everyone has a good amount of time to work on something. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page. And even like with the contract stuff, like you want to make sure everything is in writing, because even though it's great to have like a verbal contract, you're in agreement with someone, you don't know where you guys are going to be in 5 years. You don't know where that book's going to be in 5 years. And you want to make sure everything's in writing, squared away. Like, you want to make sure, you know, everything's just kind of set. I think that's what I learned over the course of, you know, not only coloring books, but just creating books too.
Gotcha. All right. Well, James, we got
Yeah.
your book up, Purity. Talk to me.
Oh, it's
What is this?
That's Nick's, dude.
That's my book.
This is you, sir.
Yeah, Purity is Heaven and Hell bad girl comic. It's definitely a nod to, you know, the 90s comics, and if anything, I'm someone who wears his inspirations on his sleeve, so you could tell that I'm a huge fan of the genre. If you love Evangeline, Lady Death, Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, this book's for you. It has perfect amount of action, history, a little bit of futurism, and since it's obviously a bad girl book, there's some, you know, tongue-in-cheek action in there. It starts off in the Salem witch trials with a very innocent Puritan girl, and she's wrongfully accused of witchcraft when it was her sister who was the actual witch, and unfortunately she hangs and goes to the underworld, but for a reason you might not think. It was all because of a spell the sister casted, you know, in order to get immortality. She basically exchanged her soul with the devil, and that's why Purity went under. And, you know, she realizes her sister hasn't been down there after being enslaved for over 500 years. She hasn't seen her sister once. And so she decides to seek revenge and escape hell. And over the 500 years, this character gets a little bit of a vengeful streak. She wants to put her sister in her place. So it's definitely, I'd say the theme of this story is a tale of revenge and redemption. So, like I said, you have that mixture of heaven and hell, fantasy elements, and without spoiling too much, there's a little bit of futurism in there.
Looks good, man.
Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Yeah.
So,
It looks really
the
cool.
layouts, the writer or the artist?
So I'm the writer, the penciler, and the colorist. This is the first book that I decided to hire an inker for, because even though I do ink a majority of my stuff, it's my least favorite stage of the process. So I thought it was time to hire an inker, and yeah, I wrote this. The character herself was an idea I had since I was like 14 years old. So I'm 28 now. So it's been a while. So it's my first big attempt at writing. And not to sound corny, but it's like 14 years of material just built up in here. So it was definitely felt really natural to write this story. And, you know, ever since, you know, putting out Reign of Ages, I kind of gave me the confidence to just put out my own stuff. And so I was like, in the beginning of, actually, I made this announcement like New Year's Day of this year. I was like, I'm going to be putting out my comic. It's time.
Nice.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are you looking at as far as is this a limited series, ongoing? What are you looking at?
So it is going to be an ongoing series. I don't mean to sound like pretentious when I say this, because it's kind of ridiculous, but you know, I grew up as like a huge fan of Witchblade, and I kind of want to take this book with that effect where you have, you know, your main series, then you have a trade, and that trade later on turns into an omnibus book, and then all of a sudden there's a random crossover book with another character, and then maybe even dive into the action figure route and make like a line of figures of like the team. And I kind of want to keep this going to where there's a lot of material to stem from and revert back to. You know, she's, you know, escaping hell into a new world, and there's a lot of fun that comes with that, and there's just a lot of, you know, ideas that also can come along with that. So I definitely want to keep this ongoing. You know, at least like my 5-year goal, at least would be to have an omnibus book by then. Like I plan on having like quite kind of like quarterly issues. So every like few months, I'll launch a new one right after the book gets fulfilled. As of right now, I am planning on launching issue 2 in February. That way, there's just a little wiggle room to, you know, fulfill issue 1 and promote issue 2. I already have some of the covers lined up for issue 2, which I'm not giving away just yet. But yeah, so like I've been planning for the future. So she's definitely going to be ongoing.
Nick, do you write the scripts, or you kind of just you're just drawing as you go along, or
No,
do you have written scripts down?
I write scripts.
Okay.
Typically, I write 2 issues ahead. So
okay.
currently, I'm writing issue 3, but I usually write the script first, and I have an editor on board with this book as well. Her name's Alexia Veldhausen. She, you might know her if you follow any of the Sonopa titles. She is the interior artist for 47 Furious Tales. She also edits Reign of Ages, and so yeah, she's editing this book. I kind of start off with this with my scripts as like a rough draft. I like kind of pinpoint the things I want to go over in the script. Then I make like a pre-draft. Then I send it off to her. She gives me my corrections, and then I start fleshing out the first draft. And then I type the first draft, send it off, and then there's some edits. There's some little things. I tweak it. Then I send off. This issue specifically was 3 drafts. 2 of those were deemed the final draft, but the final draft was like passed around for a little bit to really perfect it. But everything on this book is filtered through an editor.
Awesome, man. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. And another thing I really take pride in, the team fully consists of, we're all graduates of the Kubert School.
Nice.
Yeah, so I take pride in that because, you know, I went to the school right out of high school and I broke into comics right after I graduated. So that school definitely helped pave the way for me. So I love having a Kubert team because I jokingly tell them all the time, it's like it kind of feels like an assignment we're working on, like as a team effort. So
cool.
it's fun in that light. So yeah, it's really a fun ride so far. Like this is my first time doing a solo Kickstarter. Usually I'm, you know, involved in Kickstarters, but I've never manning the ship. So this was definitely the first time doing it. So it was a little nerve-wracking in the beginning, but yeah, the ride's been great.
Awesome, dude.
That's good, man. Listen, you funded. You got 6 days to go. You're well on your way.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Really nice. Very nice.
Awesome.
All right. Just give me a second. Pull up.
Grant, what's your next convention? Are you doing something else soon?
Well, we're doing Buckeye Comic Con, and I'm a special guest there, which I'm a little bit proud of.
Oh, sweet, man. Good for you. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, so and that's next weekend.
Nice.
And then, fortunately, we have a month off before we do Erie Con.
Cool. You have a video. Do you want me to play it?
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. In my opinion.
Greetings, ghouls and boils. I'm the Ghoul Master, a loving homage to horror anthology narrators of yesteryear. Wait, I'm an homage? Why didn't anybody tell me? You'll hear from my agent about this. But first, let's get to the heart of the matter. I'm here to tell you about the new horror anthology, Memoirs of the Morbid, on Kickstarter in time for Halloween. Memoirs of the Morbid is a black and white homage to classic horror comics from the 40s and 50s, containing 5 self-contained stories by some of the best indie comic creators out there. There's that word again. You better not find out homage is an insult. Anyways, Memoirs of the Morbid is completely done and ready to go to the printer. So don't make a grave mistake by missing it.
I like it.
I love
So
that.
that is good.
Creator.
Thanks.
Very nice.
So as you can tell, this is kind of in the same spirit as like Tales from the Crypt, Eerie, Vault of Horror, that sort of thing.
Cool. Now you said it's an anthology. How many different stories do you have in here?
There,
5.
5. Gotcha. Is it a 32-page comic, trade paperback? What are we looking at?
it's about 40 pages.
Nice.
Guys always seem to like that part of the anthology.
All right, cool. Now, excuse me, Grant. Are you the? I know you said Angie's one of the writers. She wrote one of the stories. So, are you one of the writers as well?
Yeah, I wrote and illustrated the first story, which is called "It's the Truly Repugnant Pumpkin." Charlie, last name redacted, which, as you can probably guess, is a parody of Charlie Brown.
Gotcha.
It's the Great
Nice.
Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Angie, what does your story pertain to?
It's called Clean Up. I cannot talk. In aisle 4. So it is. It was very much inspired by my time as being a manager at a high-end grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes place in a grocery store, but it has a bit of a dark twist to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If you scroll down a little bit more, this right there, this cover, is has to do with my story, and yeah, it was inspired by the Clerks 3 poster.
Yeah, this is an homage cover.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Nice.
and the artist who did the cover, Chris Cosmar, correct? Yeah, I met him at a convention. We just got to chatting, and I really liked his art style, and he came up with that, which I think is really perfect.
No, it looks awesome.
Yeah, that looks
Yeah. So I mean, so what? Well, obviously, you said you worked at this grocery store. So that's what inspired the story. But I mean, are you writing about, I guess, some imaginings that you had, some customers you maybe wanted to murder, or was this the management team you want to get rid of?
All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah, I would say all of the above. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and this cover that you're showing here was the first Memoirs of the Morbid.
Right. So yeah, we included some information on the first volume too, just because you can pick up a copy of that as well.
Yeah, there's a catch-up tier, so you can get the first one and the second one.
Gotcha. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I guess this is some of the artwork. So who are some of the other artists that you got in the book?
JP Villichez, he did Angie's story. Who else? Pete Collins. Pete Collins did the kind of slasher comic book that you see there. Alberto Pisana, he did the Demon Girl illustrations that you saw there. Yeah, there's a lot of different people from the indie comic world that were involved in the comic book.
All right. That's cool. That's cool. Now, what type of frequency are you looking to release these? Like, are you doing like one a year, a couple of times a year?
The idea was to do one a year, but so it's been about a year and a half. So, obviously we'd rather delay it and have it come out and be good rather than rush it and have it not be as good.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree with you. No,
And
yeah.
and this will come out like be fulfilled and sent out to people by Halloween, which is perfect. Or I should say October.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right.
I mean, it's completely done, but things take a little bit of time to get them all printed, and there's variant covers and a holographic cover. So
Yeah.
Very nice. Like you said, excuse me. You funded this morning. You got 4 days left. So, like I said, you guys as well. You're well on your way. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Thanks.
It looks awesome.
We're very happy with how it turned out.
yeah, very much so. And especially because it was my first story publishing anywhere, so I'm excited for people to see what's inside my head, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whenever you feel that way, it's always best to start with horror.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Cool. Very nice. Now let's. So I got one more of these to run through.
I feel like I should take up JD's spot and kind of rag you for not having
Or what?
a producer. Come on now, get it.
Yeah. Well, when you do your show with
Chad.
Chad, yeah, you come in there really you're mean to me, but yeah.
You're mean to me.
What was I really being mean? I was just I asked a couple of
no.
questions. Just because you're not ready.
Oh,
My fault.
I'm ready for you. I just have to decide on how much I like our friendship before I tell you the truth. That's all it is.
That's why you have to have a contract.
Listen, I'm pretty much insult proof, so it's okay. I mean, I don't care. You can say whatever you want, but just remember, you get as good as you give.
There you go.
It's like,
If I'm gonna dish it out, I got to make sure I can take it.
oh,
Right?
exactly. Yes. I'll take a punch so I can give 3. So George,
Yes.
walk us through this. Russ 5377. Walk us through this.
So this is my book. It's actually currently on a website called world.com. And I have a digital download available for $1.99. It's the first issue of a 6-issue story. So it's a mini series. And I'm doing it digitally this time around through ASAP Imagination. They're actually publishing it and distributing it for me. And this is the story. I wrote this story a while ago. Russ is a 17-year-old boy who was raised in an orphanage. And today he's woken up from another vivid nightmare about his past. Now, this is a memory that he should not be having since the doctors in the orphanage or the lab where he was raised erased them all. Armed with his 2 best friends and undiscovered powers, the question becomes, will he be able to escape and save himself and his friends from the clutches of these deranged scientists or become just another lab rat? So you will find that out throughout the 6 issues of the story. Does he make it out? Does he not? But this is the first issue. We released it late last month, and the second issue is coming out in July. So this is issue number 1. Then I'm going to have a release every month through their website about the book. So that is Russ in a nutshell.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Now, I know yourself and the other co-hosts are wearing some very nice T-shirts.
Yes.
Right. So when can we see more of Mr. Wonder Duck?
So the adventures. So I'm currently working on issue number 7, which is what the artists are working on right now, and then there'll be an 8th issue that they're finishing up. Once that's done, then the graphic novel will come out. I was hoping to have it by the end of the year. It's probably not going to come out until January of next year. So that's when you should expect more of the Adventures of Wonder Duck. And then that arc will be done. So it'll be cool.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you got?
Hold on. I got one more coming up. I don't normally put mine up, but I'm going to put it up anyway. All right. So, as I don't know if any of you know, but I do this book called The Oswald Chronicles, and this is another story within his arc. and it's about a magical mouse. His name is Oswald, and he has all kinds of crazy adventures, and that's all I'm going to talk about because I'm currently fulfilling my last campaign, and I have this campaign will be launching probably in another couple weeks.
Cool.
And because I don't know how you guys do it, but I am a rolling campaigner. So I finish one, I usually get it out within 3 weeks, sometimes 4, and then by the end of that one, I have another one that I'm ready to launch.
That's awesome, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just have a lot of content. I've been working with a lot of artists for a long time, and I just have a lot of content. I've said it before. People, I think, look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, I have about 14 campaigns ready to roll. So, one after the other. All right.
Look at you like you're crazy, but that's not why. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's because the indie it's just the whole indie publishing thing. That's been there, done that. You know how nuts we are. So, Mr. Lanning, you're up.
Yeah.
What's your question?
I know. Now, see, I had a different question, but since we were talking, I kind of come up with something else. And what prompted this was when we were talking about the webtoon thing. Is as comic artists, we understand how a comic page is supposed to put together an establishing shot and everything like that. But when you're looking at it as a reader who doesn't understand that, we might need to put ourselves in those shoes. So I'm asking this question. So often we're consistently trying to get people to understand that comic books aren't a genre. And what I mean is they're not just superheroes. When people say comic books and the people who aren't informed, we won't say normies, but the people who aren't informed, think DC, think Marvel, think superheroes, right? Now, my question is this: when you're selling and marketing your book, are you coming out of trying to sell your book as a comic book, as a genre? Or are you also marketing to other genres? For instance, if you have a sci-fi book, are you marketing to the sci-fi people? Or are you just marketing to people who read comic books?
Both.
All right. Well, let's start with Nick.
How
would you go with that one?
Ultimately, I think it's both because I could always get new followers through that way, like someone who wants to get into comics or someone who just loves indie comics, and not that they don't care which genre they read or pick up, but they just love to support indie comics and they would rather read that over the big two. But it's a little tough on my end, not in a bad way, but I have 2 books that are fairly niche genres. The bad girl genre and typically fantasy. Now, usually sometimes at shows I might talk to someone, I try and pitch Reign of Ages to them, but they're like, I don't like fantasy. I like sci-fi. So like with books that have such a specific following, it depends. Like I try and leave the sales pitch as open to everyone, but ultimately at the end of the day, if I know that it's gonna cater well, say in the fantasy community, I might be a little more persistent with them. Or since it's a bad girl book, I think that has its own huge following as is. Like I definitely think that while I am very open, I leave the the stories open for everyone to read. I definitely focus a little more on that community of that following because I know that's kind of their shtick. But like I said, it really goes back to just the fact that both books that I have are fairly niche genres that it could definitely be broadened, but like something like Reign of Ages where it's like strictly high fantasy, you're really only going to attract like the the followers who play like Dungeons and Dragons and love Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. So definitely I guess it's easier to pitch the book to them. But something like Purity, where there's a little bit of futurism, there's a little bit of historical fiction in there as well, and then heaven and hell, like there's a little more to work with. But ultimately I leave it open for anyone to kind of engage in, and if I get a new follower from that, great. If I don't, totally understand, it's not everyone's cup of tea. But yeah, it really depends, but ultimately I try and leave it open for everybody.
Cool. Grant.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I do tend to focus on comic book readers versus just general fantasy or horror fans. But I definitely have pitched in the past to horror fans. I mean, I'm a member of a lot of horror groups on Facebook, not specifically horror comic books, but yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that is a really big stumbling block. The fact that there are people, it could be the greatest comic book in the world, and their favorite genre, but they still just won't read it because it has the word comic book in it. So and that is a stumbling block, honestly.
Maybe we should use the word graphic novel. I don't know. That's a joke between us. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, my knee-jerk reaction is to bristle at the word graphic novel. Just it's always sounded pretentious to me, but I don't know. Maybe Angie is right. I mean, if I can sound kind of pretentious and sell a few more comic books or sell a few more graphic novels.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to go that route, you know?
It is fascinating sometimes, and I'm sure you all have run into this, where you will be at a show, and it's specifically for comic books, and it's sold that way, and you will just have sort of like 4 or 5 people who say, "Yeah, I don't read comic books," and I'm thinking, how did you end up here then?
So here's one for you. I had a woman at a convention not too long ago tell me, I don't know how to read comic books. And I was like, what? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I can't figure out which panel I'm in, which word balloon I'm supposed to read first. And like, that just like boggled my mind. But then like, I was talking to other people about it, and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Have any of you guys ever heard that before?
Yeah.
Well, that's why if you see most modern manga that's produced now, they will have a little guide as to how to read manga. So, you know.
But I'll tell you, I've been seeing a lot of manga that, you know how manga reads from right to left. A lot of manga now is printed left to right to appeal to the American audiences now. So but like what you mentioned is true. They still always have that label or that page where it's like, oh, you're reading the wrong way. Read this way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that was the issue. She was literally saying, like, when she looks at a panel, she can't figure out which word balloon she's supposed to read first. I mean, I don't know. To me, I've occasionally, if a page is a little bit, let's be honest, the more creative the artist gets with the panel layout, sometimes there is a little bit of legibility issues.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but like the 2-page spreads, I'm not talking about if it's like a 2-page splash page. I'm saying like when the artists do the 2-page spread and the panels run across the 2 pages, that always messes me up. Like, because I'll be reading, I'll read the left-hand page, and then I'll go to like the second row, and I'll be like, wait a minute, this isn't making sense. And then like, so I can't say that I'll never do that, but it would, like, if I ever do that in my comic book, it would have to be like there must be some reason for it, because I really, really hate that.
I know what you're talking about, and the only time I've ever seen it done effectively is when it flows over the split in the page. Yeah. So if it flows over that split just enough that it gives you that cue, that visual cue that it's flowing over, then it's easier. But I've read plenty where it's just like I'm reading this way, that one page, trying to go to the next one. I'm like, why am I like ahead of the story and I'm backwards? And then like, what the hell's going on? Yeah, I've had that issue.
So that's one thing about indie comics is a lot of people try to experiment with the format because they're artistically trying to create something that is a little bit different sometimes. Like Drew Hayes had entire issues where almost the entire book was text.
Right. Yeah. Cerebus. Yeah.
And
You know.
there are other ones that, like you said, I've opened up books where it's just one long panel over and over and over and over again, or
Mhm.
there have been books where it's 9-panel cubes.
Yeah.
There's always a difference, but the whole left to right thing is usually the most stable part. So I'd say if somebody comes up and says they don't know how to read a comic book, they're either reading something where somebody really did a very bad job lettering it,
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
very, very bad job with the page composition,
Yeah.
or that person has a learning disability.
Yeah, because
That's what I was thinking, but that's what I was trying not to say.
Yeah, because the thing is, most of us figured out how to read comics when we were 8 or 6 or 7,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Mhm. So James, you were rolling. So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, like I said, it's those are probably the three most common factors. A long time ago, maybe somebody would have been a little bit more colorful with their descriptions of the person. Like as soon as you mentioned that, like the person that popped into my head, I've seen at cons where like the person's wandering around the con and probably should be with a handler somewhere. But it's going to be the truth of the matter is that it's either going to be they looked at a book. I had a zine guy come up and he wanted to trade me books once and wanted to get some positive feedback on his work. And I totally misread him and started giving him constructive feedback. And he freaked out, like completely lost it. And it was because, like you said, the thing was almost illegible. And he didn't hold down to the Z.
Right.
He didn't hold down to left to right. He didn't even hold down to like any form of page composition because he was this really like hipster out there experimental zine guy trying to sell at a comic con. There's a place for those. They have zine cons that do that stuff all over the place. And they have their expression. And not every art form is for every person. I could really give a crap about modern art. I could really give a crap about AI. But there's other people who see it and love it and understand it and get expression from it. And maybe this person just wasn't one of those people. They don't connect to the medium because that's what it is a medium.
Yeah. All right, cool.
I did have a lady today. I think she was a grandma. She was there with like her grandkids, and like she's kind of like I was just brought here. I don't know what's happening. She's like, I don't even know what a comic book is. And I was like, I explained. I basically gave her like the dictionary definition of what a comic book is, and it was like, oh, it was just funny because I was like, oh, it must be like I don't know if like they were just like grandma's gonna babysit the grandkids and we're just gonna take them there. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually see a lot of that at comic book conventions now, where it's like, I literally think people just look through a newspaper and like almost like just go, oh, here's a comic convention. I mean, we have nothing to do on Sunday, so I guess we'll take the kids there.
Yeah, but that's how you get that's how the industry breeds new people. There's nothing wrong with it, but you're completely right. I've been at cons where a family just wandered in. And they were really just, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. Well, we don't read. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But when you're at a con, though, here's the difference, though, because everybody's kind of hitting on the con. But when you're at a con, you're in that comic book mindset. I'm talking about just outside of a con, though. I'm talking about on your social media accounts. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about, are you marketing outside of the idea of things just being a comic book genre?
I mean,
when you're in a con, yeah. I
hear what you're saying, Michael, and I think that's a good idea. If you're going to do that, get ready for a lot of rejection. I remember when I first started doing comic books, a lot of my friends or people I knew back in college, people who didn't read comic books would back my comic books just to be able to say that they backed my comic books. And I noticed usually by issue 2 or 3, those people all dropped off. I agree. It's maybe something that we should work more on because, I mean, that's how we're going to get new comic book readers.
It is. Do you guys know who Russell Nolte is?
Yes.
Sounds familiar.
Russell Nolte studies the holy hell out of all kinds of different marketing structures. And because he's a USA best-selling author and he does comic books, he's always going back and forth between the mediums and taking one version of the marketing from one media and explaining it to the others, either through his podcast or his newsletters. And he's always trying to look for that different way to get to the different type of person. So as far as how do I like locally do that part, finding the people that are going to enjoy your work is always about talking to them about the things inside, talking about the struggles the characters are going to go through. And if that person is able to handle the medium, then they'll jump on. But it has to start with, what is it about? Like somebody who reads one of my books, I'm always trying to add some kind of a supernatural angle, maybe demon hunting, maybe something along those lines. I talk about that part of it when I'm talking with them to see if they're even interested in the subject. If somebody out there, like I had a buddy who really, really, really wants me to turn Damage into a spy thriller. Okay, he loves it. It's just like, it is his genre. It is his favorite genre. And so he's always trying to suggest stories like that. But that doesn't get me excited. I can't even remember the last time I read a spy style novel. So it's really more about the subject matter, in my opinion, than it is even the medium that it carries over from one thing to the next. Like if you're going to go up to a Tom Cruise fan who loves all of his Mission Impossible work, if you start talking to him about Legend and Wizard and stuff like that, you may not grab onto him. But if you start talking about Bourne Legacy, they may also like that too. You got a better chance with it there. So that's where genre and medium kind of cross over. And when you're reading your audience and working with them, you kind of got to do a little bit of both each time.
Yeah, but whenever you mention Tom Cruise and Legend, you just have to say, listen, there's his other work and then the best movie he's ever made.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, okay. There's no argument.
So George, what are your thoughts on the question?
See, run that by me one more time.
Okay, when you market your book, are you marketing it as a comic book and thinking of it as a comic book? Or are you thinking of it in a sense that I can approach other people from the genre sense? For instance, like Wonder Duck, you might have people who are really into Disney Afternoon but didn't read comic books, right? So are you thinking on that angle that maybe I can get people to read comic books by approaching the Disney Afternoon fans, things like that?
Yeah, I think well, especially when I'm at a convention, I'm going to use whatever tactic or whatever's going to work to get them to pick up the book. You know, like if you're a fan of the Disney Afternoon and you enjoy DuckTales, here's a comic book that I created about a character called The Adventures of Wonder Duck. So now I'm pitching it to a person who enjoyed maybe that cartoon back in the days, but now it's a comic book. So, you know, I'm doing that. When it comes to, like, for example, a crowdfunding campaign or something like that, I think people want to buy things that they're familiar with, right? You always hear it's this meets that as a pitch because people want familiarity. I know what that is. I think I may enjoy that. So yeah, I think you do kind of have to use that tactic to kind of, well, I won't say you have to, but you know, it helps to use that tactic in a major way. If you do it right, if you hit the right nerve, so to speak, when you're talking to those people. Yeah.
All right, cool. For myself, when it comes down to something like, I guess, Oswald, I am always trying to find something, but you know, I'm selling a magical mouse, right? And who, with aspects of the story where it's like it becomes horrifying, right, as to what goes on. So people are sometimes, I bring people in and they're like, oh, this is a cute little mouse story, and then they've discovered something different. And I think that's the part that hooks them in, that it brings the people back, right, over and over again. But yeah, I do try to sell to other markets, you know, Mouse Guard, Rescuers Down Under, Rescuers in general, right? The Disney films, Secret and Nim, of course, obviously. And
almost had really scary stuff in them. All of them.
Yes. Well, so does my story. So I mean, that's why it's like, that's the stuff I gravitate to. So it's like the things that, you know, it's not your typical type of story.
Yeah, but using something somebody's familiar with is a good way of doing it.
Right. And that's what I do. So answer your question. How do you go about selling?
Oh, I don't know. I was just asking you guys. No, because my thought is this: when you're building your audience, maybe it sometimes might be, and I don't know. So I haven't tried it out myself right now, but to engage those groups and those audiences, those people on their own turf. And when they find out that you have similarities as they do at taste and likes, that it might translate over to what you make is really the kind of issue is. So say if I'm talking to sci-fi groups, and I feel like there's different types of sci-fi. There's the Star Wars sci-fi, and then there's the alien sci-fi, and then there's the Star Trek sci-fi. Yeah, speculative fiction, science fiction, everything. So when you find yourself in that right audience, and if you have a book that's speculative fiction or it's science fiction, you find yourself in that right audience. Don't market, you become sociable with them. So when it's time to market, now they have a connection with you and understand what you're coming from to market. That is what is kind of the way I'm thinking. Because every time I hear about it, we're always trying to focus on, I want comic book readers. I absolutely want comic book readers, but I want story lovers. That's what I'm looking for. And that spans so much. For instance, like Nick, purity, when I think of purity, I think of the witchcraft angle and the devil angle and stuff like that. And that right there, yeah, it's a bad girl book, but you can market that angle, and you might find a niche with emo crowds or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crowds or whatever.
Horror fans,
yeah,
that's true.
So maybe they're not comic book readers yet. Everybody's got to start somewhere, right? Everybody's picked up one comic book one time. So
yeah,
this is true.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
cool.
the key to finding your audience. Understanding what it is they're looking for.
All right. We only got a few minutes left, so I'll open it up real quick. Does anybody have a question you want to ask the panel?
No, but I do want to say thank you for all the good conversation. It absolutely keeps me both motivated, and I learned a few things tonight.
Yeah,
I agree with James.
It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot too.
All right, cool. Listen, thank you so much for you guys for showing up. I learned something too. JD Rosario is cheap.
Wait, how did you just learn that?
You didn't know that, right? You didn't know that?
He confirmed it.
I can't wait till he returns so I can break his shop some more.
Yes, absolutely.
So guys and lady, thank you for being here. You guys are awesome as always. So please, everyone, well, let's start with James. Please, James, let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
I'm pretty easy to find. The website for me is www.angrybrainartworks.com. I can also be found on Instagram at James Burton II. And a quick search on Kickstarter for James Burton or Damage Inc. will find the current project.
All right, cool. Mr. Nick, where can they find you, sir?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Nick Caponi Art, no spaces, no caps. And my Kickstarter is still up. We have 6 days left. You can kind of find me on there too. I answer pretty quickly to any messages and questions you guys have about the Kickstarter. But yeah, I'm primarily on Instagram and Twitter, so you could definitely follow there. I don't know if it's like a dead website, but I have a DeviantArt as well, which is nickcaponi.deviantart.com. But
I still use DA. I still use
me
DA.
too. I'm a DA veteran since like 2004. Like I love that site.
That's where I find all my artists.
Yeah, and like I'll tell you the truth, I've spoken to a few editors, some like DC editors, that they say they still check DeviantArt. So I'm like, all right, there you go.
There you go. So Angie, where can they find you and your work?
Well, I mean, it's going to be at the Kickstarter where you can find my work, since it's the only.
I just posted the link to that.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I also have an Instagram, and it's my name is spelled very weird. It's just ANGI, so it's Angi in PGH2, like T00. And we can put it in the comment section. I have a Twitter, but that's not really artistic, so it's Instagram. And Grant also has a website called Comicsburg, so you can get a hold of us there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a page on Comicsburg, on the Comicsburg website, under the About the Creators link. And my social media links are pretty easy. It's GW Lankard, spelled just like my last name, in on all of the social medias.
All right, cool. Mr. Lanning, where can they find you in your work, sir?
Always at landingart.com.
No more link tree? What happened?
LANNING.com. No, because you know what? I heard, this was before that, but Rosario and his attack on Linktree last week, it's like, golly!
He went
Oh. But you can find me on, you can find all my links over there for Facebook. I have to add threads. Sorry. But other than that, all my social media is over there, keeping up with things over there. So landingart.com.
All right. Mr. Medina, where can I find you, sir?
You can find me at Get Your Meds, the way it's spelled there, getyourmeds.com. That's getyourmeds with a Z.com. That's my website. Again, same thing. See, I was like, you know what? Before I get JD Rosario upset, let me make sure I promote my website. Promote that website. But also, if you guys are on Instagram, that's my Instagram handle right there at @get_your_meds. You can find me there. I'm mostly there. I post a lot on there. But yeah, definitely my website and those two places. I'm also on the others, Facebook, obviously, and Twitter. But this is where I kind of hang out most of the time.
All right, cool. Well, so I'm JD Calderon. You can find me here most Sundays, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff on the JD Calderon, and mostly on the OswaldChronicles.com or SwordTalesOnline.com or Kickstarter all the time. So thank you so much, everybody. You guys are all awesome. Great books. Everyone, check those show notes because I have all the links to everyone's books in the show notes. So go click on those links, go pick up some books, and do as I always say, buy some more indie comics, especially ours. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody. And have a
Bye,
great
guys. Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.